With these new AI tools, some of the ones I'm using, I can see that I'll need less people.
Because of AI, there's now no hiding. It's forcing this new quality benchmark in sales teams. The tables have turned. The buyer is now using AI to understand the project, the market. We've all now got access to this cheat code, this hack, this wealth of information that we didn't have before, which is just helping us put budget aside to get something like this in. It impacts literally everything.
Hello there. How does AI change the way we do sales? My next guest is Thomas Dixon, and he's been using the AI tools with his many years of experience. And I wanted to understand the effect of AI in his world of sales. Hey, Tom.
Igor, thank you so much for having me, and well done on setting up this brilliant channel. Really looking forward to getting in some of the weeds today and sharing some insights in how I'm personally using AI with my team and discussing its usage across both sales and marketing.
Cool, thanks. So you and I had a conversation when we were near Lake Naivasha in Kenya recently, and you said something that kind of touched a nerve, I guess, which was that you said, with these new AI tools, some of the ones I'm using, I can see that I'll need less people underneath me in a certain part of sales. I thought I'd reach out to you and introduce your history in sales and how it's evolved.
I've been working in sales for about a decade now. Life started off for me in sales in a very typical way for anyone in sales, I would say. And that was an SDR role. SDR meaning sales development role. And this was at a company called GE, General Electric, obviously very well known. I then moved from General Electric as an SDR to Hewlett Packard Enterprise in Barcelona for a couple of years on a graduate scheme as an AE, account executive. And from there, I've worked in various global SaaS and tech companies, including the likes of VMware, Intuit, and Forma. For 6 of my 10 years in sales, I've been in management. So I've been responsible for leading teams to achieve multi-million-dollar new business and renewal growth across companies. So I'm very used to metrics and acronyms like ARR, CAC, LTV, and the typical sales lexicon that comes with that. At the moment, I'm actually head of sales for a company known as Test Technologies, which is a Series B funded scale-up SaaS consumer insights company co-founded by ex-McKinsey guru Jeremy King, who's actually with me in the office today, which is nice. Jeremy is someone who's very passionate about empiricism. So we're a consumer insights platform that allow businesses to effectively ask any question to any audience and get results back within hours. So we actually do this by incentivizing 130 million people across 60 countries globally. And we incentivize them to take part in surveys, which we then build and analyze in our platform alongside our in-house team of research experts, also with me in the office today. These insights are then used to basically drive big strategic marketing and sales decisions, which ultimately helps drive revenue. I guess just some additional context for the audience as well. Some of our numbers, we've raised approximately $100 million to date. We're very much in the 10 to 20 million ARR space. We have around 300 active customers. Our ICP, our ideal consumer profile, is a B2C organization with anything from 500 to 5,000 employees, large enough, I would say, for them to have a team of insights folks running alongside brand marketing and sales. We also do really well with companies that invest time and money into that target consumer of theirs. So often growing businesses that need to know what consumers think, how they feel, how they behave in order to capture and maintain revenue. So obviously AI has been a massive part of that, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, what would you say has been in your history and is the biggest pain point that Gen AI now it can address? Where are you seeing its biggest effect?
It's fair to say that of every role I've worked at in the last decade, there's 3 main pain points in particular that stand out to me, and AI plays a massive part across all 3. So one would probably be a lack of clarity on who our ICP is. 2, understanding our personas, aka who do we sell to, which is anything from job titles, job functions, pain points, needs. And the third huge pain point for us at the moment as well is probably irregularities in what both sales and marketing actually know about our own products. If I think pre-AI, and if we go back even 24 months, things were very different to they are now. I think on one hand, we had internally our sales and marketing teams were typically very isolated from each other. And on the other hand, on a more macro level, I think that relationship between the buyer and the seller was very different to how it is today as well. But if we start off with isolated sales and marketing teams, cracks would appear in our messaging. You know, if I asked an SDR, a PMM, a marketer, or even an exec in many instances, just to deliver something as a very simple elevator pitch. So 30 seconds on what we do as a company and what our challenges are, what we help solving. You'd find a gap in our messaging across the organization. So I think in the past, we typically run in circles around some of these points. And if we pan out 10,000 feet and look at it on a more macro view as well, pre-AI, sellers certainly held an advantage over buyers. So I would say sellers knew a little bit more about what they were selling. They knew more about the wider industry. And this really encouraged historically, I would say, average sales reps to do well and very much utilize SEs, system engineers, to do a lot of the educational sales for them and do a lot of that sales job for them. I would say now, however, the big difference in this AI enabled world we're in is it's largely meant that the buyer now has the knowledge. The tables have turned. The buyer is now using AI to understand the project, the market, and really get a sense of what they need going into conversations. We're finding now, and this is typical in SaaS, that because of AI, buyers are now self-service buyers. They're expecting lightning fast responses from us. They're requiring immediate follow-ups, and they're requiring sellers to be these thought leaders and experts. So the expectations also change as well on that macro level. But I think today in particular, one of the biggest areas that AI can and is already impacting sellers and marketers is actually bringing businesses from that reactive to predictive growth stage. And it's actually allowing us to, watch calls recorded with prospects and customers. It's allowing us to analyze what they're saying, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And I think largely because of this and because of AI, there's now no hiding. It's forcing this new quality benchmark in sales teams. So for me, the biggest impact AI is having is certainly that creation of this consistent and data-backed GTM strategy, which is aligning to what the market needs. To summarize it all, what it means is right message to the right prospect at the right time, and that equates to better revenue. In this AI world, I think salespeople really do have to step it up and start to meet these new needs of buyers who are now informed by AI.
So even for B2B kind of sales, my history is more there. I assume you'd see the same kind of process happening. Like you said, consumers now are able to educate themselves and get more information through the online or through, just understand what it is they're trying to buy. I'm trying to understand from the business I used to work at. We were selling a machinery to textile industries, which is very traditional. I'm trying to understand how they would kind of push us. But I do see that marketing and sales and product marketing would have tools to be more in line and more kind of having the message be more coherent. I'm just trying to understand if in a B2B, whether the buyer would behave in the way you're talking versus a consumer to a business.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think you mentioned process in there as well, which is a really interesting thing. Is AI impacting the way that our sales processes are changing as well? Going back to that point quite quickly, I think our process hasn't changed, strictly speaking. If anything, we've streamlined our sales processes. I think we're still sticking to the standard sort of tried and tested SaaS process topology, let's call it. What AI has done, however, is actually just hyper refine it. So, and I'm sure this will ring true of anyone that works in SaaS currently. There's something like 4,000 plus SaaS businesses in the UK alone. We actually have a 7-step cadence, which makes up our sales process, which is really interesting. And again, this would probably be true of any B2B or B2C or B2B2C company. Step 1 is very much that lead gen and prospecting stage, which as a whole is made up by inbound, outbound, and ABM marketing. Step 2 is qualification, which is typically run by an SDR, an ADR, a BDR, whatever acronym you want to use. And then steps 3 to 6 are more AE led. So that's when you hand it on to the sales team, which is a discovery call, a demo, moving into that evaluation stage later down the funnel. And then, of course, the commit and negotiation stage as well. Step 7 would then be onboarding and passing that on to customer success teams, aka post-sales. It's fair to suggest that AI has impacted every stage in the process, but I would say none more so than step 1. Which is very much in that lead gen and prospecting area, that unison between sales and marketing. And again, this must be true for B2B and B2C. Although we sell directly to consumers, we are our consumers are our end users, but we are directly dealing with businesses. We sell to consumer brands. The SDIs are utilizing AI like never before. We're using tools like Sixth Sense, which I'll happily get into in a bit more detail, but this is an ABM tool, an account-based marketing tool. And what it's doing is picking up on buzzwords, things like buyer intent, which is that new word that's being thrown around the industry a lot at the moment, buyer intent. And then through these new buyer intent signals, which can include what businesses are interacting with on our website, what our marketing collateral is doing from a social media standpoint and who's interacting with that, what personas these people are, what industries they operate in, what keywords they're searching for, what competitors they're searching for, how long they're looking at our website. We've all now got access to this kind of cheat code, this hack, this wealth of information that we didn't have before, which is just helping us refine who our ICP is. So I think in summary on that point as well, I think AI has meant that we've forced ourselves to have a go-to-market overhaul. So we've changed our pricing, we've adapted our product, we've tweaked our messaging, we're branding ourselves completely as a company now to become more enterprise ready. We're suddenly now focused on customer stories and case studies and messaging around our biggest customers. So we're talking about challenges in particular that we know these personas and verticals are facing. So we're going after businesses more likely to buy us, use us for longer, because we know they're a good fit for our product. So I think the days of trying to cram that round peg in a square hole are seemingly less prevalent anyway. So we're doing better sales to better businesses, to happier customers as a result of AI.
What tools are you using then compared to the last 2 years? What AI tools?
So our tech stack includes, probably no surprises on this one, Salesforce from a CRM standpoint. And I know most businesses use Salesforce, which funnily enough has probably had the least amount of AI updates made to it, which we can talk about later. But the things that are more sort of AI centric and are, we're finding that user interfaces are being updated, refreshed, and these companies are actually taking on our feedback a lot as well. Include companies like Sixth Sense, which is our ABM tool, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, which is fantastic. We also have taken it a step further. We're now using personalized landing pages. Company called Newton runs that for us. We use SEP technology for the first time, which is sales engagement platforms, which is a relatively new term. The company we use to run that is SalesLoft, who are brilliant. The biggest one for me, though, is a revenue optimization tool. Again, these are all new words that are coming around because of AI. And that tool we use is called Gong. And I'll run into a bit more detail on that one. Other tech we're using from a prospecting and consumer insight tool, we're using LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We even use something called Loom for personalized video recording. And then another big tool of ours is Lead IQ, which is actually contact detail capture. But I think of all these tools, like I mentioned earlier, I think all of them, except for Salesforce, on the front end at least, are adapting to become more AI centric. And my go-to of all of those tools just after mentioned is Gong. So I'll just focus on this for now. Gong's traditionally been what you would call a call listening tool. I know I talked about it being branded as revenue optimization, but really it's just recording calls and being able to watch them back. So I use it very much to rewatch all of my team's conversations with prospects, with customers. But it's now so much more than just call listening. It's now providing us with detailed AI analysis on calls. It's helping my team craft responses back to the prospect. And it's actually enabling me to forecast a lot more accurately as well, which is a good one. Gong actually gives me access to every conversation taking place with both our prospects and existing customers. I can use Gong to do keyword searches, sentiment analysis, to really get a flavor for what our competitors and when our competitors are being spoken about, how often, in what vein. Suddenly I've got access to this wealth of information in real time, and it's totally embedded with our CRM tool, Salesforce. So it's got access to all of our company data from every account and every opportunity we've ever worked since our conception as a company. A good example is we recently heard about a competitor's service level and it dropped significantly. So a lot of our prospects were coming to us, inquiring a little bit around the support we offered. This then became a trend, and Gong actually picked up on this pattern through our calls and through listening to our calls. So it's funny. So we immediately then as a sales team started to alter our talk tracks and really focus on taking out this competitor, but really emphasizing our best-in-class customer support on the back end of this, and actually asking open-ended questions around pain points they're facing in this area. And this worked a treat for us. So a really good example of how we can use Gong to kind of adapt to what's going on. But it doesn't stop there. We also use it to call review. It's picking out trends. What was the sentiment of the conversation? What keywords we used? What percentage of time did my team speak on the call versus the prospect? Gong's AI tool will actually prompt me to reduce or increase my talk ratio as well, based on tens of thousands of calls. So it's offering us a best practice benchmark as well. It will even notify me of the time we've spent sharing our screen with a prospect. It will flag if we're under or over using questions asked, if we're pausing too much, if we're pausing not enough, or allowing time for questions at the end of calls. Another really quick win, I think, when we integrated Gong into us as a company was within 1 second of tapping into Gong, I can get that timeline of a demo, for example. So I could see that my team was speaking at the prospect for 10 to 12 minutes at a time. There was no interruptions, no pauses. And I think just bearing in mind that our demos are typically only 45-minute long anyway, I could see that our prospects' attention spans were falling short. I could tell they wanted to get off the demo. So what we did as a team is we took the information from Gong and we pivoted. We ran a workshop on storytelling, something all salespeople should be good at, in my opinion. So we looked at this being something that buyers can resonate with, it being human nature. And then we know that all good stories have a start, the scene setting, a middle, the challenge, and an end, which is overcoming that challenge, the hero of the story. So by using Gong, we pivoted to storytelling, and suddenly our customer case studies were being sort of intertwined into our demos. So we could actually capture attention a lot better when selling our platform. What it did is break the demos up into smaller chunks. And it meant that we were also integrating a little bit more time in there to pause, allow for open-ended questions. And then suddenly what we saw is demo engagement spiking. We saw a better demo to close one, success rate further down the funnel, which of course meant more revenue, more efficient reps as well. It doesn't stop there. It's also great for coaching, but I can run through that later.
Yeah. So it's reacting kind of in real time during a conversation, because I listened to a conversation of the CEO of a company called Mind Studio. What they do is they developed a platform that allows you to build bots and kind of connect them and create your own application, so to speak, to create automated processes. It means that you can create your own in-house tools to automate email answering, email reading, and all that. And he was talking about when you're doing a sales call, and you've probably gone through this or seen it as a salesperson, but when I used to do sales, I used to notice that my prospect is interested, he's giving me the respect, he's going yes, and he's showing me signs that he's positive. But actually, he's just being polite. He's not actually interested in buying. So the Mind Studio CEO said AI can notice that and basically ask a question or give information to push the prospect to some kind of decision making, right? Because the salesperson is not aware that this guy's passing time towards the end of the conversation because he's already kind of in a no situation. A lot of sales people go through this, I think, which is that you come out of a meeting, you say, oh, that was positive, and the guy in the background is just thinking, no way. Does Gong or do these tools kind of give you more real-time response in a way?
I wish. I am aware of tools like the one you just mentioned, Gore. We're not quite there yet as a company in terms of investing in tech like that, but certainly it sounds interesting. We're using Gong purely for post-call analysis. So once that call's taken place, I think we get a notification around 10 minutes after, and then that lets us know that Gong's applied AI technology to it, and then we can go into the call and analyze it. But no, I mean, any kind of technology that can take place in the real time is obviously critical. So yeah, definitely something I need to make sure my team's investing in if that's the case.
It was just interesting to hear because it just reminded me just being in those rooms and thinking, yeah, I'm going to have another conversation with this guy and start closing a deal. It was quite frustrating, to say the least, sometimes. Right. So what tasks do you see AI basically completely taking over, where humans are not as necessary anymore?
The biggest and the quickest area that we've implemented this has been in email outreach. I did a survey with my SDR team a little bit earlier today, so this is live data for you, hot off the press, but 80 to 90% of our email outreach when prospecting is actually AI generated or at least AI influenced today, which I think is an insane statistic. If I go back 12 months, it wouldn't be anywhere near as high as that. So yeah, 80 to 90% of email outreach is AI generated. So we do still tweak and improve, our lead gen work, but I think it's minimal human intervention now. And even the intervention that we take, look at with our outreach is still informed by AI, to be perfectly honest. We ask tools like Gong to actually generate the replies for us. The call takes place, we type into Gong AI and say, make a response for this. And we can then say, look, use 2 bullet points, not 4, condense this down into one single point, add a call to action in there as well. So it will summarize the conversation so much better than any of my team will do, to be completely honest, and they will be open to admitting that. The bullet points, what we talked about, the challenges that took place, the impact of those challenges, what our solution could do, and then, like I said earlier, that call to action. So it's far better, and it is far quicker than anything we could do without AI intervention. The grammar is better, the quality of the written English is better. I remember when Gong introduced this maybe 3 months ago. I remember the tool wasn't as good as it is now. It would spell things incorrectly. It would use long form words like a test technologies, which is our company, instead of just saying a test. And there was other bits and pieces that need tweaking, but it's come on so much further. Beyond that, I would also say that meetings are actually now being booked through automated workflows. So a lead will now flow through an MQL process. It then gets automatically put through our lead scoring system, and it gets thrown out to an SDR at a time that's, again, automatically chosen in their calendar when they're free. So again, this is then also further down the line automatically booked with an AE in my team as well. So there's no intervention here from a meeting standpoint, unless something non-ICP has managed to kind of seep into our system, into our lead scoring system somehow. For example, a company we can't work with or sell to. But even then, we have AI chatbots we've just introduced, which should pick up and intervene on this. So that should get better.
I used to constantly say to the team in my last company I was with, human touch is necessary. Like when we were always trying to sell, because of COVID, of course, we, like yourself, trying to sell online was not easy. I did manage to sell a machine into Japan, and we installed it in Japan during COVID. It was quite a crazy experience, but not easy to sell online when you've got this camera separation. I used to say, guys, we've got to get on a plane. You've got to go meet prospects. You've got to sit in their office. However, I'm also a big believer in what you've been talking about. Streamline and make the sales process efficient, because it is, in some cases, a long cycle. But, where do you see that the humans need to put their efforts in terms of the human touch, so to speak? And where's that balance between what you've been talking about, automation, with having good salespeople do their work, and also what does it mean to the teams?
It's a great question. I mean, that's the $1 million question. If I look at areas where AI can help in the most obvious way to start with, and then look at areas where it's better off being intervened by humans, I think, look, AI chatbots is the obvious place to start. They can now understand customer queries. They can mimic human conversations. They can provide an extension to staffed customer support. I know Amazon's a great example. They recently unveiled that shopping assistant. I think they call it Rufus, which is actually just using information from the web, product listings, customer reviews, community Q&As to actually answer questions really quickly and help shoppers compare products easily. But I do think at the same time, we've got to caveat this. AI can also negatively impact the customer experience through issues like, impersonal or unempathetic interactions. It can provide inaccurate information sometimes, make inappropriate recommendations. So I think chatbots, although they're a quick win and an obvious place to start, they're also potentially, I think, open to abuse by users as well. They can be prompted to swear or make offensive remarks. Areas whereby humans will stand the test of time and should still be there is a saying we can go back to is people buy from people. It's a very commonly used term in my world, and it's an age-old saying, but it still rings true today. I do, again, to caveat this, think it's dependent on the type of sales the rep is conducting. So if you work in an organization where it's your more transactional based selling, think simple self-serve software solutions, then arguably less human intervention is needed, in my opinion. But I would say, of course, that the more complex the product, the more technical expertise is probably needed on the back end as well. But I do largely think that unless you work in old school industries, I'm in London right now, tech and finance, banking, big parts of the London makeup and revenue here. I think lots of sales are now more transactional based and self-service led. So like I said, unless you're in those more traditional industries, which are more relationship led, the emphasis on the human is less important. I've actually started to see the addition of AI chatbots actually take it a step further as well. They're actually leading sales processes, not just at the initial top of funnel stage, but they're getting halfway down the sales and marketing funnels now, actually. So we're actually starting to see chatbots take over. I think there's a really, really cool company I saw on LinkedIn recently called Bland AI, which is posting its content all over social. If you've not seen them, definitely check this out, because it's a little bit scary. They advertise themselves as, call this number and we'll prove you don't need a human sales team anymore. And if you go to their website online, They talk about things like send your first phone call with less than 10 lines of code. You can transfer a call to a human whenever a condition's met, integrate your APIs to inject live data into the phone calls, boost your conversation rates as much as 8x, which is insane. These are bold statements, right? It's scary. But at the same time, their chatbot's really compelling. It's using human-like voices. Although it still looks a little bit primitive, it's definitely a look into, how far we're going to take this. So very exciting.
It's touching obviously on marketing and product marketing as well. It's like I had a previous conversation with Adi Mandel, who's in marketing, and talking about how she sees AI influencing marketing. We had a discussion, I won't call it a disagreement, but I just find that even product marketing, there's a lot of the work that they do that can be done by AI, kind of setting up the specs or material around the product. The argument was, but you still need that product marketing person to go out to prospects and potential customers to the market and learn what they need. How does a product fit their market? I just see that as data driven, because again, we're looking at more traditional maybe customers, like, if you go to a textile factory, they don't generally put up their needs online. Understanding what capacities do you need for their production, what's their inventory look like. Even when you go to a prospect, he himself doesn't really know. It's like you'll ask a socks manufacturer, hey, how much yarn do you have in your inventory and how's it split up? How much are you buying a year? They won't have that information readily available. Over time, that data will just start seeping through, and AI will take over in a lot of product marketing. I'm just wondering what kind of marketing analysis tools as well you guys are using. How do you connect that to sales? But how do we focus on product marketing and marketing?
It's a great question. We're very invested in this at the moment. We've just hired a new PMM as well, which is new for us. So we're certainly invested in ensuring there is that connection between sales and marketing. And I know you've spoken about it in previous conversations. It's obviously top of mind for a lot of people at the moment, and it's integral. I think what it boils down to is all about balance. So we work with a lot of brands actually who talk about enhancing their results by skillfully combining AI and human creativity together. We know that consumers still connect with traditional forms of advertising, like out of home. But I think research is showing us, and we're learning this from working with our own customers, that I think priming consumers with out of home ads in particular, we know that it means they're more likely to look at online ads for 37% longer in a report we recently ran. And I think adding AI into the mix can make, for example, out of home even more impactful. But I think using contextual information is a good example as well. Like things like the weather, the times of the day, the local areas that you're advertising in is great for digital out-of-home ads as well. So you can increase consumer receptivity, responsiveness. Although that's an example of out-of-home advertisement, AI just have the ability to do so much more than just personalized billboards based on whether it's raining or if the sun's shining. But I think it's also where brands must be really, really careful and tread carefully. I think if AI starts to feel intrusive or creepy, it runs the risk of doing more harm than good. So it's about finding that balance, like I mentioned. I think one issue facing AI at the moment is, to a lot of people, it's still considered a novelty, especially I think older audiences, and we hear this frequently. It means that consumers might be quick to write off AI innovations as a gimmick unless they're really delivering value or obviously something that's real. But if you can't see a reason for using an AI-powered calculator, as for an example, over a standard one, you're unlikely to come back and use that calculator again. So to succeed here, I think AI must be that sort of catalyst for breakthrough consumer experiences that deliver lasting value. A good example of a company we worked with as well, which was used across product marketing, was Diageo. It's a recent project we ran with them, and they, just to bring this to life a little bit, Diageo ran a project called What's Your Whiskey, and it was a digital experience which actually it was aimed at simplifying what is a complex whiskey category. And simplifying it for consumers that were not really traditionally familiar with it. So the platform Diageo created with us, which was backed by our data, asked consumers what flavors they like in order to create a unique flavor profile, and then basically recommend a whiskey for them. So consumer response to the experience was so good that Diageo actually rolled it out to 20 countries in 18 languages, and also then expanded it into the beer and cocktail categories. But the innovation didn't just create value for the consumers. I think based on the million of consumers who then created flavor profiles, Diageo now is able to understand flavor profiles of different markets and see what's missing from them as well. So I think amazing AI campaigns like this should lead to more AI integrated platforms, not just one-off projects. And I think partnering with pioneers in the field of AI innovation should be critical to any organization. AI won't always be the answer, so brands should remain technology agnostic. But I think from my experience, businesses should start with the consumer problem. You know, what is it we're actually looking to fix? What are we looking to solve? It's very easy, I would say, to build AI for AI's sake. So I'd recommend businesses actually use something like evidence scorecards to look at feasibility, desirability. If consumers are showing the right indicators on those scorecards, then build a prototype and test it. And don't be afraid to test something and kill it off if it doesn't work.
So you've been using tools that are readily available in the market. Like, do you guys look at how you set up in-house tools that you realize you need something quite specific, even simple bots to do? Or do you also connect with your suppliers of AI software or just platforms that you have AI in them, like a Salesforce? Salesforce would be a good example, I think, where, like you said, they haven't really integrated AI as much as they should, in my opinion. Their competitors are doing it. So HubSpot, for example, is doing it heavily, connecting to Zapier and other kind of platforms. So Salesforce have to get their act in gear, I think, in that sense. But do you guys connect with the software suppliers and say, hey, we would like this tool? Is that conversation going? Do you also consider having someone in-house who's an AI guy?
We do. I mean, largely speaking, the companies that have become more AI centric have been very receptive to feedback, which is brilliant. We have a person that's most focused on AI in our team. He's actually in RevOps, which is an interesting one. So largely supporting all of the commercial function. And the companies like Gong, SalesLoft, Lead IQ have been super receptive to our feedback, and we've seen the iterations take place as frequently as every month, actually. So we're seeing the AI features adapt to the things we asked for. They've been super receptive. You're right in that Salesforce has been a little bit they've been lagging behind some of their competitors in this industry. It's certainly prompting me to be vocal on wanting to change provider, if I'm honest. I think HubSpot's a good alternative, or something up and coming like Pipedrive. So if these companies aren't responding to feedback, they aren't innovating in the way that we need, will simply change.
Is there any use cases that maybe you're not allowed to mention names, but that just stick out and you say, well, as a result of using AI, I could see how our sales jumped, or we secured a certain kind of understanding of a market, or is a nice highlight?
The example that sticks to mind is probably can I mention them? Maybe I won't mention the specific name, but it's a well-known brand in the UK. It's in the sort of sweets and chocolate space. They were being massively impacted by the price of chocolate, which is of cocoa, which is sky high at the moment. This was largely impacting their budget or their propensity to buy data from us. So one thing we did is actually spot patterns in our calls around the high cost of ingredients, and what we could then do is start to pivot our messaging around, well, use consumer insights to get a better understanding of how the everyday chocolate consumer is thinking, how they're feeling, how they're behaving, how much they want to spend on chocolate, and actually use data to help inform your product and your marketing strategies. A good example of where we've spotted a pattern in the industry by just analyzing call recordings en masse across a category, then using that to tweak word tracks for our sales team. So that's a good example of, well, one example that we've used.
So let's talk about employability. Do you see that AI just kind of fits into the existing departments and just acts as a tool? Or is there an adjustment to teams? Like, is there any kind of disruption to the size of the teams, traditional type companies selling, I don't know, hardware, or companies like yourselves or your customers? You know, what's the disruption look like from your point of view?
Understandably, the way that I'm now hiring and managing performance has changed completely. So in effect, I'm now the theme of the conversation is I'm now armed with a lot more qualitative data, let's say, not just quantitative. So I have more behavioral and KPI based metrics to fall back on. It's also fair to say that I also have new expectations of people joining the business as well. So, you know, especially younger generations that are coming into the business, which is very common at a SaaS startup like ours. You know, Generation Z are now starting to become a big part of the workforce. And as a leader, I do expect them to know their way around AI. Those B and C sales players, I think, will cease to exist, to be completely honest. I think they either need to improve and become a 2.0 of themselves, or in the nicest possible way. It sounds blunt, but they will be replaced. On a macro level as well, businesses that aren't utilizing AI will be seriously harming their longevity and revenue. Personally, when I'm hiring, I'm looking to hear and see how creative people can get with AI. I like to hear about use cases of people they've prospected to in a unique way that's then gone on to be a champion for their business, providing loads of LTV, long-term value. I'm not looking so much at that classic salesy boiler room relationship builder of yesteryear, like we talked about. I'm looking for that well-versed, widely read, consultative, multi-methodology focused rep that is actually using the technology to better themselves. My advice in this space is, the more organic and genuine you are, the better you do. And I think AI has also played a really important part with employability and actually hiring. It's helped me understand bias a lot easier. So one thing I did is I sat down with my people team in the office, and we actually looked at the use of our language when writing job ads. Is it too masculine? Is it giving me, is it putting off certain ethnic minorities from applying to the role? And AI has really just given me that, real time automated feedback on people we should be hiring. If organic numbers of people coming to us for a job are low, I've got tools that can point me to people. LinkedIn's just introduced this new catch-up feature, which is really helping get the right people in front of me at the right time. It's almost like ABM for humans. But I think the flip side also is that, performance manager is easier now than ever. In the past, management would spend hours debating what a performance improvement plan, a PIP, looks like, what percentage revenue needs to be hit, are the right behaviors being portrayed, what metrics can we actually look at and control. Whereas now I think the data's in front of us, it's accessible to everyone in the organization, so we can make PIPs fair while still being really transparent on them as well. Advice from me as well in career development on anyone looking to enter sales and marketing and business development, any commercial space is three things. One, start small. So use something as simple as ChatGPT if you need to, and start to familiarize yourself with getting the best kind of outputs from it. Dip your feet in, test it out, find your own way of working alongside it. Continue to use Google, traditional methods you work with, but I think consciously, if people start to put more time aside to utilize ChatGPT as an example, they will better themselves. And my second piece of advice would be, if you're a leader and don't have a revenue optimization or call listening software already, put budget aside to get something like this in and make it a priority, because it's multifaceted in terms of the wins you can get from it. It impacts literally everything. And if you're an IC, if you're an individual contributor, put time aside to listen to your calls, to your peers, to your A reps, your mentors, other business units. Familiarize yourself, harness AI and use it to, really inform you of who the top performers are, and then get that face-to-face time in with them as well. Set up Zoom calls, take them for coffees. A third bit of advice as well would just be curious as well. So surround yourself with great talent across the business, become a product expert, create competitive battle cards, set time aside again to listen to those calls. You'll find, more about your ICP than your exec team does. So it makes you an invaluable resource as well.
So you've given advice to incomers into the sales and also experienced salespeople, but maybe let's project a bit forward. Right now we're dealing with what we all call generative AI, which does the great automation stuff that you're talking about. It is able to predict things and do things the human brain can do, but just takes a heck of a long time. And it can see patterns that for us it's quite difficult to do unless we really analyze it to death. So if we're looking at generative AI, which will be used for quite some time, I would say a few years still to go. I'm not going to look into general AI where suddenly it starts learning on its own and then things just go crazy, a bit science fiction, and changes the way you guys do work. But with all that you've learned and what you're using, is there anything that you foresee? What would be the key things? What would be the main statements that you might say to yourself?
The way I see it impacting us most in my world of sales and marketing is probably personalization at scale. A really good example of this recently is a tool I mentioned earlier, Lead IQ. They've added an add-on recently called Scribe, which to me has absolutely just changed the game in hyper personalization. And I think this is a really cool place where we're taking that early stage element of sales and marketing and lead generation and prospecting. So Lead IQ's new tool, Scribe, will literally scrape people's LinkedIn profiles. It's doing a lot of web scraping. It's analyzing most recent posts that you've engaged with, comments you've made, things you've liked, and then what they'll do is summarize it for you in plain English on the page before you. I know exactly what's top of mind for Gore Mosher at the moment. For example, I can talk his language, I can be relevant to him, and this is where the impact's happening the most for me and moving forward. So Scribe's then actually even drafting 3 emails up for me at once, and what it will do is actually just refer to some of that real content you've posted, you've shared, you've engaged with, and it's going to use these intent signals to actually muster up outreach, which is much more likely to get a response from you. The 3 versions will look and sound different, but they portray a similar message. So from there, you can actually ask this tool Scribe to actually tweak emails and get creative. So for me, this is where it's landing the most and has the biggest impact. I actually even tested out on you a little bit earlier, Gore. I asked Scribe to generate a message based on fun trivia of your location and a fun fact about your name as well. So it gave me a few examples. So I picked a couple for you earlier, which I've written down. They went, "Hey Gore, I checked out your YouTube channel a little earlier, and your insights on AI are truly forward thinking. Imagine having instant access to your target audience opinions while you explore new AI tools for business growth." It then spat out another option, which was, I love this one. "Hey Gore, your name Moshe means savior. It's inspiring. Reminds me of the biblical figure Moses who saved the Israelites." As a business advisor, this is the good bit. As a business advisor and a content creator, you probably know how important it is to stay ahead of competition. What strategies do you use to keep clients informed of market trends and shifts? It then talks about our company, so it then goes, "A test could be a valuable tool for you. We provide consumer insights that can help you inform strategic decision making and drive business growth." Call to action. What do you think? In this world that I'm ingrained in, where I've caught SDRs and salespeople just spray and praying random messages to hundreds of people at a time, 500 people at a time, homogenous emails, none of them truly really landed. We'd hope for a 0.5% response rate. So this world we're now in is just infinitely better. So to summarize it, I think right people, right time, right message equals more revenue. And this tool in particular, Scribe, combined with intent data from 6sense, an ABM platform we use, equals more open rates. So my business development function is going from 16 to 24% open rates, which means we've doubled our apply rates from 1.5 to 3%, which in turn means we're getting more meetings, but with my sales team, more meetings, more pipeline, more revenue, and the funnel continues to grow. So this kind of generative AI that we're getting with hyper-personalization outreach at that early stage is, for me, where it's making the most impact.
As you're talking, I'm thinking other ideas like personalization from your point of view, but then there's the personalization from the customer's point of view. So once I have an agent working for me as a customer, as a consumer, your bots are talking to my agent, right? And basically having that conversation, then have feedback from my AI agent that says, "I just got shown this. It could suit you because you were looking for a product of this kind." And so they're kind of assisting you make decisions, but it's on the basis of what you're saying as well. So it kind of meets in the middle. I agree with it. Personalization is coming in the fashion industry. The old way of selling, which is probably still being used heavily, is that take a shoe company, a shoe brand, would have, the 2 big guys, Adidas and Nike, would have 30 to 50 colorways of a single design. Their salespeople would be going to Foot Locker or wherever, all these buyers in different regions, different parts of the world, which have different tastes in color and trends. The salesperson's coming in with all these color options, trying to sell off the design. Adidas and Nike might say, for example, or any big brand might say, "Hey, these 1 or 2 colorways are the main colorways and we want them to be in store." Now a big brand would be able to push that, but choose the 3rd and 4th colorway that suits your region that you'd buy for your customers. I look at that way of working and I'm like, first of all, those physical samples are going because they've gone through 3D graphics. But now I think even the salesperson, how he addresses a different market in a different region of the world, it's gonna be much more selective, much more trend-based, much more, and also personalization will come into play if the manufacturing also becomes able to deal with personalization. So in fashion, clothes, that's possible. But I can see how personalization and understanding trends and also understanding consumers specifically through their social media would be really quite impressive. Yeah, I mean, we can go on forever, I guess, but I'll let you go. Of course, you've got to get back to work. It's been good chatting, good seeing you again. And
Appreciate it. You too.
just let the viewers know where they can find you, what if it's on LinkedIn or wherever?
Yep. So you guys can find me just on my LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. So Thomas Dixon, and then obviously the company I work for is Test Technologies. So I should be there, hopefully somewhere near the top.
So I'll put the link in the description. Thanks a lot, Tom. Hopefully we'll talk again when you guys are really in science fiction mode and you'll tell me different stories.
Yeah, let's chat again in 6 months, and it'll probably be a lot different to now, even. Hopefully in a good way, though. Let's see.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot.
Nice one. Thank you, Gore. Appreciate it.
So thanks, Tom, for that interesting conversation. Be sure to like the video and subscribe if you want to hear more of these kinds of conversations. And do mention on the comment section if you use AI in sales and what tools you're using. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.